the Quran warns that the end of time is coming, and of course people always in humanity felt the end of time is near. So I understand that in Christianity, the medieval Europeans, by the year 1000, they were all like, the end is near, and they were waiting for, the hour to come, and then nothing happened. And then the year 2000, we all were old enough, I guess, to remember that some people were like, yes, the end is near, and then nothing happened, and now we're in 2011, and a few months back, there was the people who were thought that the end is near too, and then that passed again. So, but there is a, biological clock that's ticking, and there will be, according to Islamic understanding, that the end will come. And from the time of the Prophet Muhammad, people always felt like, oh, the things are terrible. Women are out in the streets without head covering. They're riding horses. The end is near, So people always felt that this end is approaching. And it's interesting then that the Quran is everything is relative. So God in one place say that يَوْمًا عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ كَأَلْفِ سَنَةٍ مِمَّا تَعُدُّونَ. One day by God's measuring is like 1,000 by which you count. And then when it comes to the day of judgment itself, it says that it would be a day whose length is 50,000 years. So I guess that makes sense to give everybody time, like a few minutes with God. Why did you do this? And you have to explain yourself. And there is lots of signs, like people are always looking for signs for the day of judgment, but then in the Quran also, the signs would be like things would be so corrupt on earth, and some people, like I have friends who would look at things like using, cloning animals and using artificial, even flavoring in foods, or, playing with the corn and all that as the signs of that the end is near, when human beings start to bring destruction upon earth. But God described it that once the day of judgment comes, earth as we know it will definitely be changed. Okay, so when we come to the resurrection, the end of the world, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is the last prophet, and that by itself is an indication that the end is near, because like no other guidance is coming. Although there is, interestingly enough, the same way that in Christianity some people believe in the second coming of Christ, Muslims, some of them, and it comes probably from Hadith tradition, not from the Quran, believe that since Jesus, in the Quran it says that Jesus was not crucified and he was taken to heaven. And so people would say, well, he needs to come to earth to die, so he's the only person who would come after the Prophet Muhammad because he already came. So this would be the second coming, so he can try and help people reach guidance, and then he will die a natural death, and then after that, after a while, Yomal Qiyammah would happen. So that some of the terms used in the Quran is Yomal Qiyammah, resurrection. Yomal hashr means to stuff things together. It will be a very busy day. And Ba'ath, the sending forth. And you can see that in modern usage, you've heard the word Ba'ath before. Where have you heard it? Not necessarily in this institute. The Ba'ath Party. So they are a very secularist party in Syria and Iraq, but they chose a word from the Quran to they're resurrecting or sending forth their mission. And on the Day of Judgment, there will be the descendant of God's light that would reveal the nature of all things. If you're good, you'll be happy with the light, and if you're really bad, you'll be blinded by that light and you can't stand it. There will be trumpets on the Day of Judgment, similar to the image I'm showing in Christianity. So there is an angel with the name of Israfeel, or Israfeel, whatever, who will blow the trumpet, and everyone will swoon and die. And there's beautiful imagery, like scary but beautiful, and on that day when this happens, the first blowing, that a mother who's nursing her kid will just leave the baby and run. People who are very young, their hair would turn gray, and because everybody's scared. It would be super scary if you're alive at that moment. And then after that, so everybody would die, and then there would be another blowing of the horn, and then everybody would be resurrected from their grave. And nobody knows whether this will be in heaven, in earth, in Jerusalem, in Mecca, where exactly there are differences of opinion. So here is an imagery from Islamic miniature, but again, something like this you will find in a book, not in a mosque. As you have, it's been emphasized again and again, there is no imagery usually, or as far as we know, in sacred buildings. And I tried to do, last second I was bringing text from the Quran, and then it's too much for this slide, so we'll see. That's sort of like how, the Quran is divided by themes, even though it doesn't go by topic, like, oh, here's this topic, or here's that. But you'll find that in the English translation. Actually, if you want to read it, this is from Surah 11, Hud. If you want to, somebody has their Quran, and you can open it to chapter 11, starting around here. I have it from 100. So this is the news from the past communities that we narrate to you. Some are still standing, some we have vanished. We never wronged them. They wronged their own souls. So here God is emphasizing that it's like God does not wrong you. You're the one who brings, you go out and commit a sin. Their gods whom they invoke beside God could not help them in the least when the judgment of your Lord came. In fact, they only ensured their doom. Such was the retribution enforced by your Lord when the communities transgressed. And then if you can continue from the 102.
When the communities in the midst of their wrong. Grievous indeed and severe is his chastisement.
Mm-hmm. And then 103.
Okay. And that is a sign for those who fear the penalty of the hereafter. That is a day for which mankind will be gathered together. That will be a day of testimony.
Mm-hmm. So yes, and in Arabic it's very beautiful. That's يوم مجموع له الناس وذلك يوم مشهود. And maybe we can read one more verse.
Nor shall we delay it, but for a term appointed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 104.
Okay.
105.
No.
On the day it arrives, no soul shall speak except for his leave. Of those gathered, some will be wretched and some will be blessed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So this is one of the places where, this is a longer surah, but in one place there is the mention of the day of resurrection. Because usually at the beginning when the Prophet started receiving the messages, most of the surahs were very short and they were always a warning about the day of judgment and all the punishment that would happen. But then even in the longer chapters, there is, talking of paradise and the pleasures of it and hellfire. So this is chapter 11, and then we started from 100 to 105. One of the images, when Muslims pray every day and they read Al-Fatiha or the opening of the book, they say, they ask God, Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim, lead us to the straight path. And as a result, there is also an image that, on the Day of Judgment, people would pass over a straight path, and it's, again, Disney, mermaid, where when she got her feet instead of her fins, every time she walked, it hurt, because her feet became as sharp as the original story, not the Disney cartoon where the witch gave her feet that were, every time she stepped down, they will be painful like a sword, they're very sharp. So the idea is that there will be a bridge, and people will be asked to walk through that bridge. And if you're good, you'll pass through it quickly. And if you're bad, it will feel like you're walking on a sword, and it's thin as a hair, and you'll fall into hellfire. So, it's scary. But anyway, and so this is the bridge. And again, if you're good, you'll pass over it easily. And everybody will be accounted for everything they've done in their life. You'll be handed your book, what the angel on the right hand and the angel on the left hand wrote, and will be put together and handed to you. Here, read. And you will not be questioned. Like, you will start looking at yourself, it's like, oh my God, why is this written here? I wish it was not. And you'll not be asked of, did you do it or not? You'll be asked why. And then there's a place in the Quran that says on that day, God would seal people's mouths and then start asking them questions, and then their hands would speak, their skin would speak, and then after that you will reproach your own body parts and say, why did you speak against me? And they'd say, I did not do it, God made me speak. So beware of, so you're always not alone, God is always with you, and then your body parts is, testifying against you also. So after everybody is questioned, after individually questioned, then your deeds are weighed in a scale, and some people again, will get their pay in kind, and if you did good, you'll be, recompensed, and if you did bad, you would go to hell. But it's more complicated process than that. The prophets would be interceding, and especially the Prophet Muhammad will be interceding on behalf of people. Somebody might have done really bad in their life, but other people have wronged them, so they take from their good deeds and give that person. So it's sort of like redistribution of the deeds on the Day of Judgment. And then finally everybody, once you reach paradise, then you'll be happy, you'll be reunited with your family and so on. Okay, So one of the interesting points is that everybody will be resurrected naked, but nobody would care because everybody, again, will have this book in their hand and they'll be running around. It's like, what did I do? You wouldn't care about your husband, about your father, your mother, your children, your siblings. All you care about at that first resurrection moment is yourself. And thawab is one of the words you'll find in reading the Quran again and again, and it means reward, while iqab is punishment. And again, this goes hand in hand again to the previous points of good news versus warning, and mercy of God versus the wrath of God. Okay, so the torments of hell and the delights of paradise are described in the Quran in great detail. And hell is described in Arabic either as fire or as blazing or burning or Jahannam or and some, I don't know these other languages, but it says, in the sources it comes from Aramaic Jahannam and from Hebrew Jahannam. And Jannah, on the other hand, comes from, as Khalid mentioned earlier today, Firdaus, which is paradise, and it's an ancient Persian word meaning garden. And it's a beautiful garden through which rivers flow, and these rivers are not just any rivers, they're not ordinary, but there is water rivers, of course, but there is some with milk, some with wine, and some with honey. So Muslims do not drink alcohol in this world, but they are promised rivers of alcohol. And then, of course, people have to philosophize about everything, so they'll say, but, it's alcohol that's good for you. It wouldn't make you have an aftertaste or, so waking up the next morning all sick. It's fine. You'll drink it and be happy, and it stays that way. So while again in hell, if you ask for food, they'll give you disgusting things to eat. You ask for water, they'll give you hot things to drink. It's like, I don't want to be there. So the question of the eternity of heaven and hell, in the Quran that's brought again and again, but God always say, illa masha'Allah. The authors of this book, and contrary to some, maybe major Muslim belief, feel that, yes, paradise would last forever because it pertains to God's mercy, while hellfire will probably eventually disappear because after a while, but it might be a long while, because, again, God is merciful, and finally He'll forgive everybody and admits everybody into paradise. And that comes from, again, the same chapter. We read the continuation, like Hud, again, chapter 11, and then if you continue on 106 to 108, you'll find that meaning there. Okay. People who are in paradise will not just be enjoying the beautiful scenery, but they'll be dressed in pleasant garments made out of silk, and usually it's green silk, and they'll be given food any food that they think of. They'll be engaged in nice, pleasant conversation, and they'll be privileged with the vision of God. So they'll be allowed to be in the presence of God. And of course, that's a big debate between Muslims of like, okay, so you're telling me that God has a form also? So are we like Christians where God has a hand and a head and a feet? And some people take that literally and they reject it. And some people say, well, our whole reality will be so different then. But it does lead to discussions. And but the idea is that like you'll be in God's grace anyway. And you'll be reunited with your family and loved ones if they were saved. And then there also will be, celestial beings happy to serve you. The angels will be coming from every door, carrying silver, trays filled with good drinks. And so it's really pleasant. And then some people say, like, and who needs this anyway? It will be boring. But human beings don't like anything, right? But these are the imagery that comes in the Quran. On the other hand, the picture of hell is fiery, smoky, and food is stinky and, full of pus and so on. And you can't communicate with others. You can't, you keep begging to go out and regretting that you've done these bad deeds that you've done.